Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Thought Leader interview series. My name is Professor Rachel Msetfi. I'm Vice President for Research and Innovation at Maynooth University. In this Thought Leader series, we explore some of the really big ideas shaping our future. And today we're diving into a topic that's transforming how governments work and, importantly, how citizens experience public services. So, topics of data and AI governance. I'm really delighted to be joined by Lorraine McNerney, Head of Data Governance in the Office of the Government Chief Information Officer. Her work programme involves data-related activities, including the delivery of the Public Services Data Strategy, overseeing the implementation of the Data Sharing and Governance Act, and an analytics team providing support to areas of current expenditure, as well as representing Ireland as co-chair on the United Nations Expert Group for the Integration of Statistical and Geospatial Information. Lorraine, it's a real pleasure to have you here today.
Great. Thanks so much, Rachel. It's a privilege to have the opportunity today. I think the whole future of data and AI governance in public service is really timely, so delighted to have a chat. I suppose maybe just to start from my perspective, I think we're really living through a moment of profound transformation, in particular where data is no longer just seen as a technical resource. And also then as AI becomes more and more embedded in our systems, the way we govern data, the way we manage it will really determine, I think, the way that future transformation is used in a trusted, inclusive and sustainable way. As you've mentioned, I'm at the Office of the Government Chief Information Officer, sitting and working with our government CIO, Barry Lowry. And I suppose part of our mission is really clear around ensuring that digital innovation isn't only effective, but also from a data perspective is ethical, inclusive and human-centered. So in my role, and for us, that really does start with good data governance.
It's very interesting work, I have to say, and there is a strategic level, and as you talked about, there's the human level, so from strategy to practice. So let's start with the big picture. Data is often described as a public asset, but what does that really mean in practice? How is data governance evolving in Irish public services, and where does the data strategy fit into that?
Okay. So yes, Ireland's public service, I suppose maybe just to start off by saying it has made really significant strides in data governance over the last couple of years. And our department and our unit is at the heart of this, the data governance unit in OGCIO. So coming on to your question then, our work is very much grounded in initiatives such as the Public Service Data Strategy, and that's actually operationalised through the Data Sharing and Governance Act 2019. But we've gone much, I suppose we've gone beyond compliance and an act, and what we've really gotten into over the last couple of years is building out practical, scalable tools and supports that enable ethical data use across government. So, for example, some of those initiatives include a data sharing support suite. So that's a suite of supports for public bodies that helps deliver legally compliant data flows. Another example is the development of a unique business identifier, or UBI, as we call it, and that was developed in partnership with a number of public service bodies, including Revenue, Companies Registration Office, the Central Statistics Office, and really that was with a view of simplifying the integration and reducing the administrative burden in that space. We also then, as I've mentioned, with the Data Sharing Governance Act, we have a Data Sharing and Governance Act toolkit and a playbook, which is standard operating procedures. These supports are freely available on our website, and these help departments navigate really governance issues with confidence and with standard operations. And then we also have a public service data officers network, and that is now over 100 professional data officers who across the public service drive strong collaboration and best practices. So it really is a network for sharing issues and experience. So as mentioned, these really aren't just technical achievements. In many ways, we would see them as cultural shifts and really focused around looking to embed trust, transparency and accountability really into the DNA of the public services through our work.
It's actually an incredibly impressive list of examples, because it shows a huge amount of work across so many aspects of the public sector. I mean, it's actually quite mind-blowing how much work has had to be done, and how you've had to integrate across different departments and so on. But I'm sure it's not been straightforward. So in that context, what do you see as the biggest challenges of ensuring that data is shared responsibly and used effectively across government?
Yeah. Look, I think if you speak to anyone across government or public service bodies or indeed in any industry, I suppose one of the key challenges around data is, of course, the likes of data quality, data governance, data maturity. But I suppose one of the key challenges for us and that we're looking to address is around fragmentation of data across different systems, standards, cultures across departments. So, there's a lot of work underway, but absolutely, I suppose lots more that can be done in this space. I think another element to call out as well is trust around data. So really, if people, our citizens, our users don't trust how their data is being handled in appropriate way, they won't trust the services then that are being built upon them, the services provided across government. So really, I suppose that's just why we believe governance isn't just a technical matter. It really is the underpinning piece around ethical, legal, behavioral, so the underpinning trust associated with data. So yeah, I suppose in answer to your question, I suppose key challenge being fragmentation, but also ensuring trust at the heart of data and digital delivery.
Absolutely. And we might come back to that at that point a bit later. But of course, I suppose data is only part of the story. Increasingly, it's the foundation for how AI is being developed and being used in public services. But the EU's new AI Act is a big step in this
Yeah.
area. So, does this create opportunities and challenges for public services here in Ireland?
hmm and look, just to call out, there are many government departments and agencies very heavily involved in this space around the implementation of the Act, different AI initiatives. But from an OGCIO and data governance perspective, I think in particular to call out that the AI Act introduces a risk-based approach, which is really positive and is essential for public sector use of AI and related data infrastructure. Of course, high-risk applications will need very rigorous oversight, but it also then creates the space for innovation if we get the governance right. So we're involved in, lots of proof of concepts, and there's a lot of potential AI projects underway. But for me, it really is around, creating that space for innovation, but ensuring then that the governance is underpinning, of course, the human in the loop and all the oversight. So there is a set of guidelines for the responsible use of AI that have been published by this department, and we're getting really excellent feedback around that. They're helping at least to start the conversation and to give some guardrails around, initiating projects and as I've mentioned, discussions around what could be possible to do. But I think just to call out again, that piece around high risk applications, absolutely needing that rigorous oversight at all stages.
And that's a really good point, because it also goes back to that notion of trust.
Yeah.
And in the way that public services are delivered, this is something about affecting the day-to-day experience of citizens in Ireland. So, could you say a little bit about that? How do you see
Mhm.
these frameworks affecting the day-to-day experience of people like
Yeah.
yourself and myself?
Yeah, sure. I suppose just to reiterate, like the AI governance frameworks are the essential ingredient. They're needed to underpin this whole space. And as I've mentioned already, Ireland's guidelines for the responsible use of AI in the public service have really been developed and published earlier this year to actively empower public servants to use AI, artificial intelligence, in the delivery of services. Really, as I've touched on already, it is about firmly placing the human in the process, and the guidelines set about aiming to enhance public trust on how government then uses AI. So really, lots of examples. We're already seeing the impact of that, but maybe just two to call to mind. For example, many of us have seen and heard the great work in Dublin City Council's Gen AI labs, which are streamlining services. AI is supporting, areas such as diagnostics in St. Vincent Hospital. So we're building up a really core set of examples of where this is being done really well, and that there are blueprints and use cases for others to look and what good looks like. So yeah, really a growing set of use cases and great examples. But again, just coming back, the success of these does really come back and for me depends on the integrity of the data and the robustness of the data governance behind them. So again, just bringing that back to our old world, for me, that really is where the governance comes back in. So absolutely frameworks underpinning, but then the data governance being at the core of that as well.
And I think from my perspective as a non-expert, and possibly for many people listening, those examples, for example, the diagnostics at St. Vincent's Hospital, they really bring to life what's possible, and also the point that you've been making about how important it is that the data behind the AI is trustworthy and so forth.
Yeah.
So then if we think about the future, we know what's being done. We have some examples of what has been done with AI and services for citizens. What opportunities do you see moving forward, just say the next 5 to 10 years, for AI to transform services for citizens?
Mm-hmm. I suppose the more we look at how AI is developing, I think 5 to 10 years looks like a really long time frame in many ways as well. So maybe just to say looking into the future and the role of AI, definitely what we're seeing is around the opportunity for AI to develop much more proactive, personalized services, digital and data services for our customers, for the citizen at the heart of it. Absolutely seeing opportunity to reduce administrative burdens. We've talked about some of the hospital examples, so improving diagnostics, detecting fraud, supporting policy design. So really a wide swathe of examples and opportunities. I think they're endless at this point in time. So yeah, certainly within the next 5 to 10 years, massive opportunities. But again, just coming back, I suppose the approach in particular that we're taking is around proof of values, demonstrating the value, ensuring that these AI opportunities are being used ethically, but also just bring it back again with that clear accountability and human oversight. So in many ways, we're looking to the projects that we know we can clearly demonstrate and deliver on that commitment as we choose them. But I think that's really, for us, actually, that's the balance we're working to achieve, and around, some of those less high risk areas. So very much personally, I think huge opportunities for AI to transform for services for the citizens, both, now, next, and into the future.
Yeah. And that's a really good point about the time frame, because maybe 10 years ago we used to talk about the 5 to 10 year time frame. But
Yeah.
as technology changes so fast, 2 or 3 years ago we weren't all using ChatGPT to ask a question,
Yes.
or for everything. So you're right, that's a really, really good point. But let's go back to that issue of trust. And trust, I guess, is about people.
Mm-hmm.
And you can look out there on the internet, watch your YouTube videos, and you will see all sorts of scare stories, let's say, about how AI is going to take over everything, and the world is going to be ruined. So if we leave that aside, and we don't want to bring this to a negative note, even though I sort of just did, let's think about how people are changing the way they interact with AI tools. And sometimes they share more than they should. And I think sometimes they become quite complacent about the risks. And I would put myself into that category as well. So to that point, how can governance frameworks anticipate and manage not just the technical risks of AI, but also these patterns of human behavior that are evolving so quickly?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Look, maybe to start by saying, this is the space that me and my team and I are operating in, and we're absolutely seeing that governance piece must evolve and continue to evolve, managing, I suppose, both the systems side of things, but also the behaviors. So for us, that means embedding, ethical principles in system design, educating our users and citizens on data rights, and coming back again, I know I've mentioned many times, but ensuring then that human oversight is incorporated into automated decisions, where that's then the piece. So, we hear of Gen AI and other elements. So really, I think once we have the foundations right, that then allows the automated decision-making process into the future piece. I suppose just on a separate note, our data sharing and governance frameworks, we are continually updating, and we have some more to come out later this year, but they're really much designed in anticipation of those shifts, and not just to respond to them. So very much open to changing them, adapting them as needs be. But yeah, absolutely, we're seeing that the governance that we have in place here today needs to evolve and will continue to evolve, to match both that system and behavioural piece.
And I guess that evolution is more rapid than it would have been
For
in
sure, yeah.
the past,
Yeah.
and that's really important. So let's shift our focus a little bit. At this point, we spoke about various European legislations that affect what we do here in Ireland, and thinking about Ireland's role in Europe and globally. And it's often said that Ireland punches above its weight in this space. How do you see Ireland's role within Europe and globally in leading ethical AI and data governance?
Yeah. To start by saying, look, we're really proud that Ireland has scored and consistently ranks really highly in the likes of, the OECD global rankings, and in particular for the trusted use of our data. And in particular, the work that we're doing in OGCIO and within the department is very much aligned with the likes of the EU Digital Decade Programme, our own National Better Public Services Programme, and also then, wider initiatives such as the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, for example. So I've heard that adage, and it really is supported and underpinned by global rankings across the world. So yeah, just to call out, I think Ireland in our really good space from that perspective. I suppose bringing it back to more day to day and operationally, we continue to balance that innovation with regulation. Um, that in many ways is achieved through collaboration. So, for example, with academia, with industry, with civil society. So it's not just from a government perspective. It really is from that many parties need to come together in order to achieve those rankings. So it's certainly not something that's delivered on in isolation. So I suppose really just to call that out as a key point. From our own perspective and within my own unit, we were really proud as well nationally to receive a recent e-government award, and that was specifically for cross-organisational collaboration. So we're delighted to get that recognition. We believe it did reflect our work in coordinating and actions across departments, aligning standards, building shared data sharing and governance cultures. So in many ways, sometimes it's not the most glamorous of areas, but we really can see the impact and how it helps to drive forward Ireland's agenda, both nationally and internationally. So yeah, lots of great work, and as I say, it's a collaboration of many different partnerships and collaborative approaches.
And collaboration isn't easy, especially if you're collaborating across organizations,
Yeah.
across different departments, whether you're within government, public sector, within a university, within health services or whatever. Those collaborations are difficult. So huge congratulations on receiving that award. It represents massive amounts of work on the part of your team and your department. Now, as I mentioned just now, my role is working within a university, and we often think about the influence of AI on the way we work within a university, the way we do our research, people, students, and so forth. So we're educating students for the future, for future professions. And I guess new technologies like this often mean the new professions will develop, the ones that we don't know already. So what new skills and professions do you think are going to emerge in the field of data and AI governance?
Mhm. I suppose in answer to this, I mentioned at the start that we help chair a data officers network. And if you think back to, the implementation of GDPR, it was a very different role. So absolutely, I think this is a hugely emerging and developing space around what the new technology means for professions, and in particular then in the field of data and AI governance. So for example, we're absolutely seeing the rise of data stewards, public service, data analytical roles, and really, many of these are for the first time being held at a really senior level across organizations. So that is quite a significant step change I would have seen personally over the last 3 to 5 years for sure. Um, what we're also seeing, not just with the roles as a new role, but that these roles are also bringing both technology and policy together, but also then this ethical dimension piece that we've touched on. So I think that's where the AI introduction is really having a significant impact. So the ethical use of data for delivery of services and infrastructure. I suppose so. To your question, then, and with that in mind, education and training must therefore evolve in order to support that. So we're working with partners, so such as the Innovation Value Institute in Maynooth, but also with the Institute of Public Administration, and really very much in a hands-on way, helping to ensure content is both timely, but also then that it's delivered in formats that can be pushed out to as many people as possible. I think there's quite an insatiable need for training in this space at the moment. So trying to look at many different channels and methodologies for delivering that. But again, lots more to do in that space. And there's some really great working groups and other groups set up not just within this department, but across government as well, that are pulling together and trying to ensure that, appropriate content and training is being pulled together for delivery. So yeah, I suppose that's really, for me, it's around developing, building on the capacity that's there, but in making sure that right across, I suppose maybe just the last point to make on this is, again, data might have been seen to need to deliver training for a certain grade, a certain level, but I think it's right across organizations from, entry level starters right to the executive and management board as well. So yeah, lots of change in that space that I'm seeing. I'm sure seeing the same yourself as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's a really good point. This is not just for our undergraduate students or third level
Yeah.
students. This is all the way up the levels, if you will. So how should our education and professional training evolve to meet these rapidly changing needs?
Yeah. Look, I think just to follow on from that last point we were discussing, I do believe it needs to go beyond just that digital and data literacy to data acumen. So really understanding the social and the business context of data. So, we're talking about data governance and AI in this conversation, but it really is looking at it from a much broader perspective than just, day-to-day delivery. So for us, that means embedding data governance into, as you've touched on, curricula, developing professional certification programs, developing apprenticeship programs, which colleagues here in OGCIO now have underway this year. So, some very new and innovative ways of doing that, but that will be embedded into the future. So really to support lifelong learning across the public service, but also then to skill up in those new areas of skills that we can already see are needed as well. So it really interesting, lots of new roles that are coming that wouldn't have been there even 1 to 3 years, never mind, 5 to 10 years ago. So I think it's just trying to keep a pace and in many ways trying to try and stay ahead of the demand needed to deliver data and services infrastructure.
And I suppose whenever I think of learning and our students at the university, I always think that they're learning for the future. So we're
Yeah.
looking to the future, and it's the future that our young students are going to own in a way. So if we look to that future, what would be your vision? It's a tough question, but what would be your vision for the best possible enhanced by AI future for society?
Yeah, and look, just to call it, it's really, I wouldn't even call it my vision. I think when we look across nationally, internationally, a very clear drive for digital public services, government as a platform, really to make sure that we have a future where services are proactive for the citizen, that they're inclusive and very much human-centered. So we have, many different initiatives, for example, a life events program that'll be delivered over the next couple of years. So really around that the citizens are empowered by the data, not controlled by it, that they have much more control over it themselves. So again, maybe bringing it back to our discussion today. So actually that comes back then to good governance, good oversight to ensure fairness, transparency and accountability for services that are delivered on behalf of government.
I love that idea of the citizens being empowered by the data. I think that's a really lovely way of putting it. And so if I can then also return to the slightly negative aspect, what are the risks of AI in the future that we can avoid? And I suppose how can governance help steer us in the right direction to avoid some of those risks?
Yeah, probably lots of different answers or ways to respond to that. But I do think the over reliance on automation needs to be kept in mind, particularly the loss of that human agency piece or black box systems. So yeah, I think really, careful consideration of the systems that we're putting in place from an AI perspective, and ensuring that that governance continues to be our compass at all stages. I do think having that at the heart will help us steer towards that future that is ethical, inclusive, and built for our people. So yes, probably a short answer to a very deep question, maybe for another session.
We could almost
Yeah.
have a whole session
Yeah.
on that point. And what's really interesting about what you've said, it was the first part was about citizens being empowered by the data, where the risks are loss of human agency. So it's two sides of the same coin, and we need to aim in the empowered direction. So I just think this has been a fascinating conversation. I think we could talk all day, Lorraine. So thank you for giving us your time today. What I'm taking away from it is data governance isn't this kind of boring framework thing that slows everything down. It's actually about making sure that innovation delivers for people in ways that are fair, trustworthy, ethical. And that feels like a really powerful message for the future of public services.
Mhm. Yeah, just from my perspective, thanks very much, Rachel. Yeah, it's great to have a conversation with you. It's been a real pleasure. And I think as you've summed up there, from our perspective, really good data governance isn't a barrier to innovation. It's very much a foundation to help enable it. I think when we govern data well, we'll build systems that are trusted, inclusive, more resilient. And to our discussion today, it really is around creating the conditions for ethical AI, for meaning digital transformation, and essentially for public services that will reflect the values and rights of our society. As we've touched on, Ireland is punching above the weight of many other jurisdictions, but I think just to say, we really do have talent, tools, and also, which I believe is essential, is the ambition to lead and be leaders in this space. But alongside that, leadership in data governance means more than just technical excellence. It's very much around responsibility. So maybe just to wrap up for us, that's about putting people first, embedding ethics into every layer of our systems, and then to shape a digital future that works not just efficiently, but transparently, fairly, and humanely at the heart of it. So thank you
I
for
think
your
that
time.
thank you, Lorraine. I think that's a great place to close. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you.
Likewise. Thanks a million, Rachel.